Hey, okay, so kind of tripped up my stairs just now, but what's up? If you don't know me, you probably don't, unless you're within my small circle at the moment. My name's Lloyd, and I play a variety of popular games on Kick, but I have been long awaiting the MMO of Ashes of Creation, and yesterday we got a good look at some juice from the creative director at Intrepid Studios, aka Steven Sharriff, and a little bit from our friends at Ashen Forge. They run a podcast weekly, usually on Sundays, I believe. You can find them at twitch.tv/TheoryForge. That is where the VOD will be for this 100th episode, so congratulations, guys. And yeah, we're just going to be doing a quick summary of the 2-hour video and break down pretty much everything that was said as quickly and concisely as possible. I kind of broke them down into little segments here. First of all, we're going to be starting with the Alpha 2 questions, because that is going to be the most prevalent thing on most people's minds. And basically we've got a lot of good news. A lot of good news. Basically, they have the core system, everything's coded, give or take, and it's more about expanding on those features, getting more UI for those features, visual effects, audio effects, etc. Steven even mentioned that these are all end of the pipeline type of things, so that's why they are, last. And interactions with all the systems mingling together, they want to do like some QA testing, some, regular spot testing. There was mention of Phoenix Initiatives doing tests, which is their PI thing, which is pretty much like the people that like did the Kickstarter that paid for that little thing. They get like early testing, but they have not tested yet as of this moment. And me as an A1 tester, obviously I go after the PI testers. So anything that they haven't done, I have not done. Outstanding large feature systems are generally built. So Steven just mentioned that they need content to be built at this point in A2, which is basically assets, models, creatures, armor sets, ability systems, etc. That's just the type of content. For example, in Alpha 2, if say in 3 months we were just to launch Alpha 2 right now, that would mean just a ton of gray boxes and materials out in the world. And since A2 is non-NDA, they don't want to show that. So they're going to wait until they have all that content, and that should be coming in, which is good news, really good news, which means should be soon, TM, possibly next year. That's a speculation. No, they didn't say anything about that. So speculation, next year, possibly. There will be the character creator for Alpha 2. It's currently getting retouched and revamped a little bit. That will be at the start of Alpha 2. Guild management will be at the start of Alpha 2. So if you're in a guild, good news for you, because you will be able to test these features, give feedback on these features, and it'll be really helpful for the team and for the launch of Ashes of Creation. Naval will not be at the start of Alpha 2, but it will be kind of like an update. And so you'll be able to acquire components, build certain ships, ride them in the water, come into contact with players, maybe interact with some of the weapon mounting and stuff like that. It will be jank, and it's not all-encompassing. You will have select ships, select items, etc. that you can bring onto these and select components that you do to build these ships. But yeah, they just don't want to give away the whole naval combat system, is basically what that means. And it will be in its actual testing phase, so it will not be good to go right away. And it's not even going to be in Alpha 2 right away anyways, so it will be an extended update throughout the testing. They did ask for what would the indicators of success for Alpha 2 be. That would be 1, empirical data through logs and player interactions with particular systems and items, playtimes, attention metrics, etc. So basically just whatever the players do in game, they get their logs back, they get the data, and they're like, awesome, we can design our game around this. The next thing is they will be doing a lot of community work where they have their community team like Margaret and Vacnar and all those awesome people, Z, all those awesome people working on the community team, Fupo, of course. They will be interacting with players, doing surveys, getting feedback on behalf of the playtesters. Now, I do want to mention that these playtesters, like why Intrepid does this, isn't necessarily because players, players are the actual testers. They do have a QA team internally, and they do hire a third-party company outside of Intrepid Studios to QA and playtest the game prior to giving it to the actual players. So we're kind of like a third quality assurance tier in their game development, which I think is awesome. And, maybe note that when you are playing Alpha 2, if you do decide to buy the package, you are not playing a game. You are testing a game, and you are trying to test for what is to come at launch. There will probably almost 100% be resets. You're not going to carry over that character stuff onto the next playthrough at launch. Your character is going to get wiped a few times. So don't act like you're going to be playing a game. Don't get too serious about Alpha 2. Don't get serious about the people that are playing Alpha 2. Generally, you want to test for is it fun? So yeah, you will be doing all the does it feel good test. Does this feel like a good game to play? And then you'll also be doing like, oh shit, that's a bug. Let me submit a bug report. So there will be multiple things to test for us as players, and I can't wait for that to happen. Alpha 2 will be as long as it needs to be, which is an indeterminate amount of time of how long Alpha 2 needs to work out those bugs, figure out those systems, maybe even change some of those systems a little bit, tweak those dials, balance things out a little bit, prior to a break period and then the betas. So Steven did mention that there will be a break period between Alpha 2 and the betas, but I'm pretty sure previously it was stated that there was Alpha 2 is going all the way until launch on a different set of servers. So little incongruency of information there, but possibly just an oversight in the middle of talking, so it's whatever. We'll figure it out when it comes. It's not that big of a deal. They have been testing security features in Alpha 2, and they have acknowledged the issues that they had in Alpha 1, which I remember there was somebody that hacked the files that gave, like, I think I might have a screenshot of it where I was gifted like 9 million gold or something like that. I'll try to post it in the video if I can find it right now. And then next section, naval combat. That's actually a huge subsection that they had. They talked for a while, but I only have like a few actual points as what you guys need to know. So they've developed naval combat, vehicles, how to do the mechanics like attaching weapons on the vehicle and stuff like that needs to be worked on still. However, it shares a lot with caravans and mounts currently within the code. So should be a pretty easy transition for them. Shipbuilding has been spread out to multiple different professions at the harbor, which is a structure that will be like a neutral area. You can shipbuild at that structure, the harbor, and you will interact with a station with the particular blueprint of the components from all these different professions that will ultimately build the ship entirely. It was asked if you could do a naval assault on a coastal node to damage that node. The team has gone back and forth on sieging. It would have been difficult to balance. However, they've talked about like harbors being the focal point of those objectives in a siege, where you could try to disable a harbor, and then you should be able to get that objective key point during a siege. How harbors work is, I believe there's 5 nodes that can connect to the harbor, but the first one to develop to the village stage, which would be like node level 3, I believe, would adopt to that harbor. There's crossroads, then there's crossroads, encampment, village. So it would technically be the tier 3, and then after that it's town, city, metropolis. So there's 6 stages in total. And then somebody asked if you would be able to, I believe it was Diggs. Diggs probably asked this. Will you be able to name your ship? And Steven said, absolutely. You can get your name. You can name your ship anything that you want, and you can own more than one ship. So that's really cool. Next, Next is the classes. What classes should we expect for A2? Well, Bard is scheduled to be in there, and Rogue should be in A2. However, Summoners might not have... Well, actually, I believe Summoners will not make it into A2 at all. Or if they do, it'll be like upon later, under like a later patch or later development, kind of like the naval system. They might have some opportunity to create... Oh, good note for Summoners. They might have some opportunity to create different summons due to the animal husbandry system, but we'll see. #TM. The idea, or at least the desire, is that if you're playing a necromancer, you don't only just control undead, you can kind of control what those summons look like. That would be really cool. We'll see if they can get it to work, but if not, they can't. Or at least they can't in time, and maybe that'll happen into like a later expansion, and that'll be really good. So the next section that I have, stuff that happens during gameplay. So they touched on that some story arcs, storylines, etc. will not be touched on a per server basis based on the path the server takes initially. So what that means is that they are creating separate story arcs, storylines, etc. per node for their points of interest based on the decisions that players make in game on their very first run through. Say you're doing the Tower of Karthus quest, you make a decision to kill an important NPC. That NPC will no longer be in the next portion of the story arc, and it will change the direction of the story. Meanwhile, on a different server, they decide to save that NPC, and then their story arc will continue to have that NPC, which will, again, ripple effect onto a different storyline, a different story arc. And that's really, really important design-wise, because Steven talked about how other games give lots of doors, but there's basically only a singular path being drawn. So like you can choose 4 different options, but they all ultimately lead to a railroaded theme park feel, which feels unmeaningful to the player. So their goal as a company is to make a meaningful experience by actually opening doors to different realities or different stories through Ashes of Creation. Oh, they were talking about synergies between different classes and how you could potentially stagger them with like a fighter and then maybe stun them with a cleric ability. And they were asking about how those might work, or like what the intended design was. And Steven said the intent of the design is so that players who want to play solo, they can, but when they come together to encounter group content or raid content, the interconnectivity and the synergy between these different classes and their knowledge level of these abilities and how to use them appropriately. And he mentioned that he called these synergies promotions, or for the effects that happen. So that might be something to note, as that a class synergy might be known as a promotion. But basically, it's a way to enable skill ceiling and synchronization between parties. So you could have somebody that knows how to work with a particular class composition in order to achieve greater success and have it mean something by knowing these different interactions between classes, which is, as a PvP player, awesome. As a PvE raider, awesome. As a crafter, I mean, you're going to want to learn at least a little bit of combat. You're probably going to want to do it in groups, because I'll get to that in the future. But just note, crafters probably need to go out into the world. Another question that was asked was, can you kill non-combatant NPCs like you can in WoW? And the answer to that is simply no. Basically, you will be able to kill certain NPCs during sieges, however, not non-combatant ones. This is to mean that if you destroy like general NPCs, like the blacksmith NPC, if you destroy like their structure in a siege, they will be disabled afterwards, because there's no point, and they will be despawned during sieges. So you won't be able to access these NPCs during sieges. You won't be able to like move your materials or your resources, and they will completely despawn during the siege. And then once the siege is over, there will be a kind of like a open world battlegrounds or battle arena after a siege, where the defenders will have to try to salvage their materials back, and attackers will have to go in and take those materials. Whether you succeeded or failed in the endeavor of sieging the node, those NPCs will be disabled afterwards. I believe he said something along the lines of like guards or captains being killed, like actual combatant NPCs. They will take part in the siege, and if they die, there will be certain ramifications to them dying. So that's pretty interesting in its own right. It's a lot of information just to kind of like unpack all of that. So that's maybe something to discuss later on, like the possibilities of what could happen. They also asked about, will player created NPCs be given? And the answer is like yes. So they'll have like player NPCs created for like rotating crops, planting water, or doing some stuff that's process related on the freehold. You will have your like your gladiator or your champion, whatever, for the arenas in town or on your freehold. I don't remember. Check the wiki. Also, Lex, thanks for the wiki. You're awesome. I appreciate all that, because I refer to that constantly to always keep fact checking myself to make sure I'm not giving any false information. And you guys do an awesome job. So I just wanted to say thank you for that. Also, the intent behind the equipment system. So this is layers upon layers upon layers of stuff. I guess I'm going to, instead of reading this big note, I'm just going to kind of paraphrase it. The equipment system is focused on, there are two directions that design could take. One is being a macro meta, which is most efficient tactic available, and Steven described it as a macro meta, which is basically what almost all games, all MMOs do at the moment. There is a macro meta where you have to have X item in your build, otherwise you're stupid, you're trash, you're garbage. Why the hell do you have this +6 when you could have this +6? The goal is to not have that, and to emphasize on micro meta, which is more so this equipment is really good for this dungeon and really trash for that dungeon. In my opinion, this is really good design because this eliminates gatekeeping that you see in like Lost Ark, that you see in WoW, that you see in a ton of other games. You will be able to spec your gear. You can spec your gear appropriately for what you are trying to accomplish. Now, there can be some complaints on, is that good or is that bad? But I think ultimately it's good, in my opinion. And with that, Steven mentions that there are two types of ways that they design encounters: vertically and horizontally. Vertically is basically, if you've ever played D&D, which I love, they have something called a challenge rating, which basically means you need to be X level or you and your party need to be X level to defeat this level of monster, this challenge rating of monster. However, players can circumvent that challenge rating by building out horizontally. So for this particular encounter, the example that they used was like flame golems, and building plate with fire resistance so that the plate resists the bludgeoning damage, while the fire resistance, obviously stops the fire, or at least resists the fire a little bit so that you can survive against it. And that gear is not class dependent. However, you might take a little bit of a hit in your stats while you are speccing for more defense, which, perfectly reasonable if this challenge rating monster that you can't beat with your normal gear, if you just build resistances to it to kind of like horizontally progress, then yeah, maybe you are able to beat something that you would not normally be able to beat, and that's awesome. It takes a little bit more work getting those resources, but that also interacts with the entire system and Ash's goals, where they are trying, and I repeat, they are trying to make it so that caravans, sieges, all this stuff matter. All this land management, all the resources that you get, your freeholds and stuff, giving those resources to your nodes, building your equipment, enchanting your equipment, all this stuff is meaningful. They want to make everything interconnect and be meaningful, and I think this is a really good way to do it. Speaking of enchanting, gear breaking if it's over enchanted. This was mentioned a long time ago, but they kind of reiterated it here and kind of touched on it again. Gear breaking depends on the kind of tier it is at, and the risk elevates at the higher of the tiers, obviously. So when you're doing lower tier gear, low level enchantments, maybe you just don't get a +1 to the weapon that you're trying to enchant. However, if you're at like a +8, +9, you might break the weapon, and that is completely at the player's risk of, A, do you really want to risk in over enchanting your legendary item, or do you really want a really awesome legendary item that you can just decimate people with? And is it worth that risk? Yes, it's always worth the risk. Go for it. Let it ride. And this is why I don't gamble while I live here in Vegas. So this could be bad for me. But anyways, yeah, you can break your gear over enchanting it if you go too high on the enchanting list. Okay, we're almost done. We're 3/4 done. Next thing is freeholds, the big topic that was touched on last dev update. Nodes are like the cities. Parcels are like counties that players bid on, and then you can place a lot or a space within that parcel to place your freehold. Narc had a pretty cool kind of picture that showed it. Maybe I can steal his if he doesn't copyright strike me. Sorry, that was a low blow. That was easy. That was easy as hell to hit. So anyways, yeah. Basically, oh god. Sorry. That was too easy. All right. So basically you can get this parcel of land, place your freehold on that plot, and then neighbors they asked if you could have like a freehold next to you that's like your buddies, and if you could share the bonuses between your two freeholds. The answer to that is no. Basically, there's going to be a minimum distance between freeholds, which will not grant shared bonuses. And it was also mentioned that one parcel equals one freehold. So there will be a parcel of land that you can get that's like a county that you can place your freehold on, but no other freeholds can go on this parcel of land. And that will then extend a minimum distance between the next freehold, and there will be no shared bonuses whatsoever. Next, the freehold has a max of 6 buildings that are profession or business based. So from here on out, they basically talked about like min-maxing and like what you could possibly have. So like, say you really, really wanted to max out lumber, like woodworking, like the lumber milling, then you would build your main profession building, and then you would have maybe two to four of those buildings, maxing out the skill trees in each one so that you could create a max quantity, max quality, and like max speed, or with like little refuel, as little fuel as necessary to fund all that, and you could be the best lumber mill around. Or you could get a more broader term of like the lumber working and do different like things that might inhabit like shipbuilding. Since it will be in multiple different professions, maybe you want to build different buildings that will act that, but you won't fully spec out everything. You'll just be very specified in like, I'm going to make the best quality of this, I'm going to make the best quality of that, and I'm going to make the best quality of that. But you won't have like the best fuel efficiency, and you won't have the most quantity in all those professions like you would in the previous example, if that makes sense. You can grant people permissions on your freehold to let them craft things. So only one person needs to have a freehold of a particular profession to grant grandmaster processing. If you've built up your freehold to have the grandmaster level of processing, you only need one person to do it and them to give you access to that. However, Steven did mention that just giving it out to random people, having them sell like or open up the freehold to public, basically they're going to try to avoid that gaming the system, and try to keep it through family or guild systems to give within those particular social groups, not just give it to anybody. So you can't just be like, hey Lloyd, I saw you walking around and you have a really good processing skill. I've got a really good processor. Do you want to come to my freehold and I'll charge you 50 gold to use it so that you could make materials? I'd be like, damn, that sounds like a good idea. I would love to. And then I craft at his station. That's not allowed. I would have to join his family or be part of his guild, or her family or guild. And I would have to then be invited. So they're trying to make it more group orientated, and they're trying to create soft friction by maybe not allowing players to do everything in the world unless they're with a particular social group that has particular social ambitions, and it might conflict with somebody else that has those same social ambitions, which would be good for sieging. Also, I would like to I just want to say that their foresight in player behavior is fantastic, because as I'm thinking about these things, I'm like, well then if they do that, then I'd probably want to attack them. Like, I'm just like, I want that. I don't want them to have that. So I think it's a great direction that they're going for. Next is three more topics. Crafting. This one's short. Just as a previous retroact, there is no quote unquote discrimination system for taverns to block people from shopping at your taverns in your freehold. So yeah. Can't ban dwarves, can't ban elves. You just got to learn how to live together, okay? My boys at Dunheim, you're always welcome at my tavern, so just letting you know. Crafting is the next section. Discussing on crafting systems to degrade. They said it's questionable at the moment on if like they want their like crafting stations at freeholds to degrade. They're going to be testing it, but it's not currently implemented. Only degradation system in place right now is taxation, and the more buildings you build on your freehold equals more taxes. Crazy, right? So the economy in this game is going to be absolutely insane. And all my math nerds out there, please hit me up, because I hate doing math, and the only math I want to be doing is for PvP. Okay, so there are diminishing returns in the crafting system to. This was the thing that I said before in the thing where the crafting system kind of forces players to go out in the world and explore and grab more resources and whatnot, because there are diminishing returns in the crafting system. So the longer that you spend there or making the same thing over and over and over again, there will be diminishing returns. I can imagine this being like a sore spot for some of our crafters. As a little note, Tibia did this as well. Long little 2D game, Tibia. I love that game, by the way. It reminds me so much of Ashes, or of what it reminds me of what Ashes is trying to do on a much smaller scale. And that was a fantastic game, and I could play that game forever. But anyways, oh yeah, so they had this thing where you could only make your runes as like a druid. You were a druid, you would make runes like an ultimate healing rune or like a sudden death rune, which does like a shit ton of damage, and you would be like level 12 or level 14 in order to get these spells that would allow you to write these spells on these runes and then sell them to players. And runes, if you don't know, in Tibia are like the resource to buy. It is what you dump most of your gold into if it's not armor or weapons. And holy shit, was it OP, because you could be like level 12 in like Tibia version 7.6 or something like that, and you would just sit outside of the depot just making your own food, eating the food, and making runes, selling the runes, buying more blank runes, coming back, eating more food, making more spells, bullshitting with all your homies and stuff like that. Just sitting there, playing RuneScape, playing Tibia at the same time, just back and forth in between these AFK little mechanics, making gold, leveling up skills, and it was a blast. However, that was short-lived on my part because soon they invented a system where you had to go from, you had like soul points. and you had 100 soul points. And each time you cast a spell without killing something, you would lose soul points. So once your soul points got to 0, you would have to go out and go hunt. I'm like, this is bullshit. All I want to do is make runes. So I imagine it's going to be something like that system. But I can see why, because then nobody's playing your game. They're just making fake money in your game and not actually playing the game. So yeah, anyways, Tolnar, good segue. Yeah, segue. Tolnar, they will not be done. I don't remember if they said for Alpha 2. I don't think they'll be done for Alpha 2. They will probably be a later installment of Alpha 2, if anything. And to see the full 3D models of at least the 3 basic, like 100% model, not the slider version of it. So like the lion guy, the scaly guy, and whatever other Tolnar creature bestial thing was there. I'm looking it up. I don't care. Oh, the monkey. How could I forget the fucking monkey? All right, so there's the lizard, the lion / wolf, and then there's like the orcish monkey looking thing. Those 3 100% optimization models may be made by the end of the year. If not, they should be like sometime soon next year. And once again, that was not with like the sliders. It's just the 100% one-way models. We'll see how far we get on that. But we're currently 5 months away from the end of the year, so I wouldn't expect too much. But you might see it, my Tolnar friends. And then there was some other questions that were asked, and I figured I'll just go through and finish this up quickly. So mounts do not degrade. This was a part of the crafting system degrading. They didn't like the idea that your mounts would degrade or that they would go away. They didn't really elaborate on if you can still kill them in combat or not. They weren't that clear. My guess is that they persist until you dismiss them, or they die in combat, or they completely got rid of the whole killing thing, and now the mounts just persist in the world until you dismiss them. I didn't really get enough clarification on which direction they were heading, but my guess is that's all subject to change, like everything else that has been previously listed. There will be a stable system for mounts that includes active or inactive mounts, but it hasn't really been detailed yet, so Steven is kind of reserving his comments on that. Augments were a huge debate in the community on like, what does it look like? How's it going? Well, they're currently being actively worked out, and they will not be in a large part of A2, but they might end up appearing or shown of like some representation of augments for like some classes later in A2, but I wouldn't expect a full system like until like the betas. I wouldn't expect augments to like really be ingrained in the system until like beta 1, beta 2. The preview of the augment system is not known when to be scheduled to showcase, so they're still pretty far away from augments from what I can tell. Our apartments is the last thing. Is there is approximately 50 at the 3rd stage nodes, and they asked how much would apartments possibly be, like how many apartments would you have per node in a metropolis. And there will be upgraded paths based on the mayor, basically, on the apartment building, on the quantity, the quality of like the types. You could have like larger or higher tier apartments, which will have greater allotment and quantity of the furniture, stuff that you can put inside, decorations, whatnot. But the amount of apartments per metropolis is estimated to be somewhere in the low hundreds. which is even less than the freeholds out in the world that was estimated to be in the low thousands. But I guess if you count all 86 nodes having the low hundreds, there's going to be 8,600 at minimum apartments. So that's still quite a bit in a 50,000 populated server, which still makes sense. Totally get it. And then, yeah, that's pretty much it. They're going to be testing all of this. Obviously, everything is subject to change. Please do not take everything one for one, that this is the way that it is and will always be. But anyways, I would like to thank you all for sticking around this long. If you stuck around this long, I'm trying to get videos out at least once a week, but between working 40 to 6 hours a week as like an IT admin, streaming on Kick, running 2 D&D campaigns bi-weekly, I can get sometimes like a little rundown. So Narc was literally not joking about how much effort it takes to create, edit, and produce content, but I will try my best as I'm not in a comfortable enough spot to quit yet. Actually, not even close. But anyways, I would love to maybe one day just be a full-time content creator, but that's not going to be for quite some time. So I don't expect anything major changing in my life. So I'll try to be streaming on Thursdays and Fridays on kick.com/LLEWD, which is lewd with 2 L's. I usually stream late at night, so I can't promise that I have like a set time that I'll be streaming or if I even will be streaming because, like I said, I got a lot on my plate. But I will try to interact and show my face as much as possible. I love talking to the people from the community. And it means the world to me to just kind of like try to build my own community and with like-minded individuals that just want to play a good game. Yeah. End of the video. Anyways, thank you all. I hope you enjoyed the video. Don't feel obligated to click on any of the buttons below, but I wouldn't hate you if you did. And thanks. I'll catch y'all later. So